everyone, and welcome to Belinda's DIYs. Today I'm going to be sharing with you Christmas in July. Now I have 10 of my favorite past DIYs that I want to share with you. But wait, I saved the best for last. So let's get started. For the first DIY, I'm going to start with some frosted Christmas decor. I'll be using this mirror candle holder from Dollar Tree, and some of these glittered silver berries, some iridescent glitter, and I purchased this at Walmart. And this set of clear ornaments from Dollar Tree, this tall glass vase from Dollar Tree, a white wax candle, some Mod Podge, some Epsom salt, and I purchased this at Dollar Tree, a piece of red ribbon, a piece of garland. Okay, so I'm going to start by adding some Epsom salt to this paper plate, and then I'm going to be adding some glitter, and then I'm just going to mix everything together. I don't have an exact measurement, but it's probably like around a cup of Epsom salt. And as far as the glitter, it's just as glittery as you want it to be. In this case, I put plenty of it. Once I was satisfied in how the mixture looked, I went ahead and I continued with the project. Next, I added some Mod Podge to another paper plate. Next, I started brushing on some Mod Podge to my ornament until I completely covered it. I made sure to give it a good, nice, thick coat. Next, I started to sprinkle on the Epsom salt mixture onto my Christmas ornament, and I continued to go all around the ornament until it was completely covered, and I did not use a light hand. I put it on there nice and thick. And this is how my ornament turned out. I'll be doing the same thing to the other ornament. Next, I'm going to start working on the piece of garland. And what I'm doing here is just making sure that the piece of garland that I cut will go completely around this glass vase. For this particular project, these garland needles are just too long, so what I'm going to do is cut them down. Next, I added hot glue to one end of the garland, then I joined both ends together. Next, I brushed on some Mod Podge over the garland circle, and then with the side of the Mod Podge, I turned it over and I placed it over the Epsom salt. And then I just sprinkled some of that Epsom salt mixture just to make sure that I would cover all the areas. I gently pressed the garland circle down just to make sure that it would get completely coated. And this is how it turned out. You do have some fallout, but once it dries, it stays put. So I'm going to just put this aside and let it dry. Next, I'm going to do the same thing that I did to the Christmas ornament with this vase. I'm just going to brush on some Mod Podge, and then I'm going to be adding the Epsom salt mixture onto it. And this is how the vase turned out. Next, I've taken off some of the silver berry clusters off the bouquet, and what I'm going to do is cut some of those berries off. Next, I'll be hot gluing the silver berries onto my circle garland until I'm completely finished going all the way around. And this is how it turned out. Next, I'm going to slip my vase onto my newly created vase decor. And I almost forgot about the mirror. I'm going to place the whole thing over the mirror just like this. And this is how the frosted vase turned out. Since I've been decorating with a lot of red, I decided to add a piece of red ribbon to the Christmas ornament. And all I did was just add a bow at the end. And this is how the ornament turned out. For these next DIYs, we're going to create this Christmas tree for sale sign, this pillow, and also this believe sign with some Christmas trees. For this DIY, I'm going to be using this red pool noodle, and keep in mind all these materials are from Dollar Tree. The first thing that I'm going to do is remove the sticker, and then I'm going to start cutting 7 pieces of this pool noodle, and I'll be using a knife for that. And I'm just going to randomly cut different sizes, so it doesn't matter the size, it just matters that you have 7 pieces. Next, I'm going to be using these stencils because I'm going to spell out the word believe. And I'll also be using this Waverly chalk paint in the color white. And I'll also be using this beauty sponge. Okay, so I'm going to start with the first letter, and on the first tube that I cut, I'm going to paint on the letter B, and then I'll move on to the next tube and then put the letter E, and then so forth until I spell out the word believe. Okay, so now that I've stenciled in all my letters, what I'm going to do next is fill in the little gaps that those stencils have. As you can see right there, I'm filling in that little space. So I'm going to do that to the rest of the stencil letters, and then I'll be right back. The next thing that I'm going to do is hot glue all the tubes together, and I'm starting now with the B and the E, and I'm just going to put some hot glue along the side of the tube and then just join them together. Next, I'm going to join the letter L next to the E, and I'll just continue hot gluing the remainder of the letters. Dollar Tree right now has these little miniature trees, so I'm going to be using 4 of these packs, and they come in a pack of 2. Next, what I'm going to do is hot glue these little miniature trees to the top of my tube. I'm just going to add a dab of hot glue underneath the Christmas tree and then just place it on top, and I'll be putting all those trees along the top of the tubes. From those 4 packs, I had 1 little Christmas tree left over, but I have to say this was the easiest DIY that I think that I've ever done. For this next DIY, I'll be using 2 of these dish drying mats, and these are from the Christmas collection from Dollar Tree. I absolutely love this buffalo check pattern. So I'm going to start by just removing all the tags and also the little plastic holders, and I'm going to carefully remove them because with this mat it seems like if you pull too hard it'll tear, or you can see like a little indentation on the pattern. I'm also going to be using the snowflake ornament, What I'm going to do to this snowflake is remove the bling wrap that it has on the front. I'm just going to lift it off as you see me do right there. Okay, so now that I've removed the bling wrap, as you can see now it's nice and flat, and what I'm going to use the snowflake is to stamp it on my mat. Okay, so I've added some white Waverly chalk paint to a pan, and now I'm dipping my snowflake in the pan as you can see, and I'm just making sure that the snowflake is completely covered with the white paint. Okay, so now I'm ready to stamp the snowflake onto my mat, and I'm just going to be doing this to this one mat. And now you have a pretty snowflake print on this mat, and it looks so pretty, I think. So I'm going to let this paint dry for just a few hours, and then I'll come back to finish it off. I'm going to be using this cotton mop head to make some tassels for my pillow. Okay, so just let me tell you really quick what I did with the mop head. This is the holder that held all the mop strings, and what I did, I used my wire cutters to cut into the plastic and also into the middle holder that was actually holding the strings, and I cut the plastic, and that way it would release the strings. Okay, so this is how I'm going to make my tassel. I'm going to get 6 strings from the mop, and I'm also going to use 2 pieces of yarn. So I'm going to lay 1 piece of yarn down, and then place the bundle of strings down the center, and then I'm going to grab both ends of the yarn and then make a tight knot in the center. And then I'm going to place the last piece of yarn, and then I'm going to place the bundle of strings right in the center, and then I'm going to tie another knot nice and tight. And now I'm just going to cut the strings and shorten them just a little bit. And then lastly, I'm just going to cut the strings and shorten them. And this is how all 4 tassels turned out. Okay, so now I'm ready to create my pillow. So I went ahead and I placed both of the bottom mats facing each other as I'm showing you right there. So I'm going to start hot gluing up at the corner, but what I did first is add one of the tassels there on the corner. I placed some hot glue, and then I went ahead and I placed the other mat on top, and that way it's sandwiched between the 2 mats. And I'm just going to keep going down, adding hot glue in sections at a time until I get to the corners, and then I'll add a tassel. I am going to leave an opening down at the bottom so that I can put some cotton through there. I left an opening about 3.5 inches. I'll be using this cotton from an old pillow, and now I'm going to start stuffing my pillow. And now I'm going to be closing up the opening by just adding some hot glue. And this is how it turned out. For this project, I'm going to use 3 of these puzzles, and the reason I'm using these is because they are made of wood. The back side is nice and sturdy, so I'm going to be using these 3. I'm also going to be using these printouts that I made on PicMonkey. I'll be using this for sale sign, and also these Christmas trees, and also the letters that are going to spell out Christmas. Now, if you decide to do this project, you can also use these jumbo stencil letters, and these are 6 inches. Now, these I found them at Dollar General. Since this is a puzzle, the pieces do fall out, so what I'm going to do first is hot glue the pieces down. Now, the reason that I chose to use this puzzle board is because of that reason, because they are made of some type of wood board. And if you can see the width, it's a good size. So I know that my sign will be nice and sturdy. I'll be gluing down the pieces to these other 2 boards. So once I glue them all down, I'm going to have 1 board going across that I can work on. But the first thing that I'm going to do is flip them over to the front side, which is really going to be the back side. This is where I'm going to glue my boards together. Okay, so I'm going to start by joining two boards together, and I'm going to add some hot glue, and then I'm going to place a craft stick over it, and it's one of those jumbo ones from Walmart. And now for this other side, I'm going to do the same thing, but for this side I am going to use the Dollar Tree craft sticks because I did have enough of those and I didn't have enough of the jumbo ones. I'm also going to be using this stake from this Dollar Tree DECOR. Now this is an old sign that I had for a while, but I put away everything in case I may need it. So now that I have this long stake, I'm going to use it to reinforce my long board. So now I'm just going to add some hot glue on my stake and then place it on my board. So now I just want to take you up close so that you can see how I filled in with glue all along the side of the board on both sides. I'm also going to use some Gorilla wood glue, and I'll use this on the front side of the boards where they join together. Now I'm going to let the glue dry for a few hours before I continue working on the board. I'm also going to be using some of this spackling because I want to close up some of the gaps that the boards have. Okay, so I'm done and I just want to take you up close so that you can see how it looks now. Now I'm going to let this dry overnight and then I'll come back and work on it the next day. Okay, so it's now the next day and what I'm going to do is sand it off with my sanding block and just make sure that my board is nice and smooth. I'll be using this chalk paint to paint my board, and this is from the Kilt Chalk Style Paint. I went ahead and I gave this 2 coats of paint. And lastly, I'm going to be using some Mod Podge so that I can glue down my words to my sign. And then lastly, I painted some black lines on each side of the for sale words. Today I'll be creating these beautiful Christmas trees using some Dollar Tree ornaments. For the first Christmas tree, I'm going to be using this shelf board. Now this is something that I had offhand, and this is a really thick board. This is going to be a pretty sturdy home decor. You don't need it to be that thick, it's just what I had on hand. Now this measures 10.5 inches wide and 28 inches in height. I'm going to be spray painting the board with this chalkboard spray paint by Rust-Oleum. Okay, so I've taken my board outside and I'm going to start spray painting it. I'm going to give it 1 coat and then I'm going to let it dry and then give it a second coat. I'm also going to use the deer head from this Dollar Tree ornament. I'm only going to be using the deer head, so what I'm going to do is remove the wreath of horns that it has around the deer. And I'm also going to remove the greenery around the neck. And now I'm going to take this outside and I'm going to spray paint it with some white spray paint. Now the deer has a white color already, but it's not bright enough and I really want it to be super white. So that is the reason why I'm going to go and spray paint it. So these are all the ornaments from Dollar Tree that I'm going to be using on my Christmas tree. Now I'm going to be using some of these vase fillers. Now these are just great to use as a Christmas ornament. They are just really pretty, and there's all different sizes, so you can fit them into different areas to fill in spaces. I'm also going to be using this other bag that has some really bright white base fillers, which I really like. So I'm going to be using 2 of these bags. I'm going to be alternating those base fillers. I'm also going to be using about 2 packs of these that come in a pack of 15. And these have gold and like cream white Christmas ornaments. Now those are so pretty. I'm also going to use these smaller little ornaments, and these come in a pack of 16. So I'm going to also alternate some silver ones and gold ones and just mix all those different Christmas ornaments and create a really pretty Christmas tree made out of just Christmas ornaments. Did I say that enough? Christmas ornaments. Okay, so my board is ready now. I'm going to be using this long board as a guide, and what I'm going to do is just create a triangle shape. As you'll see in a little bit, some of the paint came off, but that's okay because the ornaments will cover that. Okay, so now we have the shape of a Christmas tree, and now all I have to do is now fill it in with Christmas ornaments. I will be using this deer head, and I'll be placing it up at the top of the Christmas tree. So I'm just gonna mark off some space where I need to place it. Okay, so now I'm gonna start adding all the ornaments. Now I'm gonna start with the base fillers up at the top because they're smaller, and then I'm just gonna work my way down using the bigger ornaments and just alternating all the different ornaments that I have on hand. Now let me just say that this is just one idea to decorate your Christmas tree. You really can use any of the Christmas ornaments that Dollar Tree has right now, or anything that you might have stored in your stash. I just wanted to use just plain round ornaments. I do want to try and make another one, but in a larger scale, perhaps using an old door or something like that. Also, I wanted to say this took a while, so it does take some time to hot glue each ornament and then placing it just right. So it does take some time. It's not a quick, fast DIY, let me tell you. But was it fun? Yes, most definitely. I didn't really want to make this part of the film so long, but I just kind of want you to see how I started to build up the ornaments, and so that you can get a really good idea as to how I created the Christmas tree with ornaments. And so I apologize if this clip is just too long. Now I'm going to hot glue the deer head up at the top of the Christmas tree. And this is how my Christmas tree is turned out so far. Now for the tree trunk, I'm going to be using a piece of this pool noodle, and I'm just going to cut a little piece, and then I'm going to cut that piece in half. And the piece is about 2.5 inches in height. And I'll be spray painting it with this gold metallic spray paint. And lastly, now I'm going to go ahead and hot glue the trunk to the bottom of the tree. For the next Christmas tree, I'm going to be using these 3 Dollar Tree signs, and this is an alternative in case you don't have one long solid board. So I'm going to start off by removing the metal wording that they have. I will be storing away these metal wordings because I can use them later on for future DIYs. Okay, so what I've done here is I've laid out all 3 boards side by side, and I'm going to be gluing them this side with the right side up. But I do want you to see something. The pattern on this board is really pretty, and if you wanted to, you could create your trees directly on top of these boards without painting them or anything. Now these white ones, I did peel off some of the paper, but perhaps you can maybe add some paint and cover them up. but these are really pretty as well. But I'm going to be using the back side, and that's where I'm going to be painting it. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I'm going to start gluing the pieces together, and like I said, I'm starting on the front side, which will really be the back side when I'm done. Okay, so now that I've glued the two boards together, now I want to reinforce them by adding some more glue and then directly adding a piece of duct tape over between where the two seams meet. And I'll be following the same steps to the other side of the board. Now to give this board extra support, I'm going to be using these rulers from Dollar Tree, and these come in a pack of 2. Okay, so here I'm just showing you that I've removed the black strips that has the numbers, but I'm going to be hot gluing this back side that's flat onto my boards this way. So here I just want to show you that the boards had these holes in them where the hanging strings were placed. I'm going to go ahead and cover these using some spackling from Dollar Tree. I know this is a bit more work than just having one long board, but like I said earlier, this is just an alternative just in case you don't have one solid board. I'm also going to add some spackling to the seams. The spackling dries pretty quickly, so I'm just going to give it a few hours to dry. Okay, so now it's been about 2 hours, and now I'm ready to sand off everywhere I put some spackling, and I'm going to be using my sanding block for that. For this board, I also use the chalk spray paint. I'm going to be using this white Artesia outdoor acrylic paint to paint around my board and also create some lines and make it look like distressed wood. I'll also be using this gingerbread felt ornament kit, and what I'm going to do with it is create a deer head. I'm also going to be using this Dollar Tree dish mat in this really pretty buffalo check print. So I'm going to start off by removing the head of the gingerbread, and then the arms are going to be the ears. But first I'm going to fold it in half, and then I'm going to cut off the head, and then I'm going to just continue working with it until I get the shape that I need. Okay, so these are the legs of the gingerbread boy, and what I'm going to do is just cut them off and shape it up like the jawline of the deer. Okay, so I felt that the chin was a little bit too pointy, so I'm going to cut it off and just round it off just a little bit more. After cutting it several times, I decided to cut it some more and cut off the ears just a little bit and make them a little bit smaller, and also make like the top of the head of the deer, because it didn't have that. It just didn't look right. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this and reshape it some more. Okay, so now I'm going to place my deer head pattern over the dish mat, and I'm just going to outline it with a black marker. Next, I'm going to cut it out. I'm also going to be using this Dollar Tree headband with antlers. So I'm just going to break off the antlers, and then I'll be cutting them with my scissors. So now what I'm going to do is hot glue my deer head right there on the top of the board. Next, I'm going to be hot gluing the antlers on the back side of the board over the deer head, just like this. I'm also going to turn it over and put some more hot glue on the back side. And for this one, I'm gonna also create another Christmas tree shape, and I'm gonna start right underneath the chin of the deer. For this tree, I'm gonna use these red ornaments, and these come in a pack of 12. So with this tree, just with the last, I'm gonna start filling it with the red ornaments. However, these ornaments are a little bit bigger. For some reason, I offsetted this one. I was playing around with the tree and just adding now some of these silver bulbs, but in the end I decided not to, so this is also another option. I just felt that the red really stood out against the black. I'm also going to be adding some of these mini pine cones from Dollar Tree and also the larger brown pine cones. So I'm going to start with the large pine cones, and I'm just going to be hot gluing them in different areas where I feel it needs to be filled up with something. I didn't want to put an ornament, I wanted to put something different, and I thought of these pine cones that would look perfect with this tree. In some areas I did end up using some red Christmas ornaments. And then I went in with the mini pine cones. And this is how my tree turned out, and now all I need to do is add the trunk. Now this is the other half of the pool noodle. I had spray painted white, but I really didn't like how that looked, so what I ended up doing is wrapping it in some burlap and then hot gluing it under the tree, and now it had a cute little tree trunk wrapped in burlap. And for this next DIY, we're going to create a lighted lamp post. I just want to tell you that from the top of this lantern to the bottom of this lantern is all Dollar Tree items. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and get started. For the base, I'm going to be using this Dollar Tree bucket, and this was something that I purchased back in the summertime, but you can use any type of bucket as long as it's plastic. I'll also be using this Dollar Tree handle, and this holds either a broom or a mop. Okay, so what I've done is turn my bucket upside down, and I'm going to be making a hole on the center. Now I need the hole to be as wide as my handle, so that's why I'm tracing around it. Now to create the hole, I'm going to be using my glue gun, and all I'm going to do is just put the tip inside the circle and then just let the heat of the glue gun melt the plastic, and it'll start creating a bigger and bigger hole. Next, I'm going to be spray painting my base, and I'm going to be using this spray and go fast dry enamel in the color red. I'll be taking it outside, let it dry, and then bring it back inside and continue with my project. I'm also going to be using a pool noodle in the color red. Now what I want to do is make it look like a candy cane, so I'm going to be using some white duct tape. I'm going to go ahead and place my duct tape up at the top, and then I'm just going to wrap the duct tape around my pool noodle as you see me do there. And this is how it turned out. For the top of my lamppost, I'm going to be using this Dollar Tree clear ornament, and I'm also going to be using some of these fairy lights also from Dollar Tree. I'm going to go ahead and remove the ornament holder and keep it off, and then I'm going to insert the fairy light wire inside my ornament. And to keep the wire from coming out, I'm just going to add a dab of hot glue there on the side of the ornament and let the wire adhere to the glue. Next, I'll be taking my handy knife and just cut a slit on one side of the pool noodle as you see me do right there. And now I'll go ahead and add my ornament up at the top, and I'm able to slip my wire through that slit. But first, I'm going to add the remainder of the wire down the opening of the pool noodle as you see me do there. and that way it's hidden and you won't be able to see it. Next, I'm going to hot glue the battery box right underneath where I made the slit. And as you can see, the battery switch is right there at the top, so it's easy to access it. Next, I'm going to create a bow using my easy bow maker that I also DIY'd a while back. I'll go ahead and link that video up above and down below in case you're interested in how to create this easy bow maker. Well, as you can see, where the battery is the back side, and now I'm going to apply my bow to the front of my lamppost. What I did is I extended my pipe cleaners just so they would be long enough to wrap around my lamppost, and at the same time it gives my battery pack just an extra hold, wrapping the pipe cleaner around the back side. And then to make sure that my bow wouldn't move around, I added some hot glue, and then to give it a little bit more decorative look to it, I added some greenery and some red berries. So the paint is dry on my base, and this is how it turned out, and now I'm ready to assemble my whole lamppost. So on my handle, it has this top handle, and what I'm going to do is remove it, and I'm going to be placing this side down into my base. Now after that I insert my handle into my base, I'm going to add some hot glue all around as you see me do there, and that'll give it extra hold. And now I'm just going to hold it for a while until the glue hardens. Next, I'm going to add a dab of hot glue to my ornament, and that way it'll stick to the top of my pool noodle. I had forgotten to do that. And now I'm ready to slip my pool noodle into my handle. Lastly, I added some garland ties on the top and bottom of my base. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to create these adorable reversible snowmen and scarecrows using all Dollar Tree items. I'm going to start by painting these wooden blocks. I'm going to be using this Waverly chalk paint in the color white, and this is going to be the side of the snowmen. So for these two, I'm going to paint them white. Now because these have these letterings, I'm going to have to give them about 3 coats so that I can get a nice white finish. Now here, just want you to see that I have a nice white canvas to work on. And now I'm going to turn them over, and I'm going to work now on the scarecrow side. For these two, I'm going to use this acrylic paint in the color Latte. If you can't find this particular color, you can just use any tan color will do for your scarecrow. One thing I forgot to mention is that you have to make sure that each side is dried very well before you work on the other side. I'm also going to give these about 3 coats as well. Since I had distressed it, I want to make sure that I get a nice smooth canvas. And I also want to say, if you can't find these at Dollar Tree, you can really use any pieces of wood that you might have in your stash. For the eyes, I'm going to be using these googly eyes from the Crafters Square collection. I figured that using these would be so much easier than drawing the eyes. Different sizes come in the pack, and I'm going to be using the larger ones. So I'm going to start now with a snowman. I'll be using a ruler to line up my eyes, and then I'm going to hot glue them in place. And now using a pencil, I'm going to draw a carrot, and then I'm going to move on to the mouth and then make some cheeks. And then I'm also going to put some lashes on the side of the eyes because this is going to be the snow woman. And then using a black Sharpie, I'm going to outline the lashes. And then with the red Sharpie, I'm going to fill in the lips or the smile, and then the cheeks. And for the nose, I'm going to use this acrylic paint in the color Harvest Orange, but you can also use any orange that you have on hand. You can also use a orange permanent marker. I would have used that if I had one on hand, but I didn't. Now I'm going to let this dry and give it about 2 coats. And this is how the Snow Woman turned out. And here's the set of the snowmen. Now for the male one, all I did is just make a smile in black, and it doesn't have any lashes or cheeks. So that's about it for him. So this is how they turned out. So now I'm gonna turn it around to the back side, and now it's time to work on the scarecrows. So I wouldn't mess up the snowman's eyes. I had to put them in a raised surface such as this frame, and I just laid them across. Now for the scarecrows, I followed the same steps, the eyes, and then I put some lashes. But for these, I'm gonna add a candy corn nose and then also a different style of mouth. So all I did was just do a triangle and then add 2 lines for the candy corn shape. Now for the mouth, I'm just gonna kind of do a few waves and curls. And then on the ends, I'm just gonna add some squiggly X's. And now I'm just gonna paint the candy corn nose and then also the mouth. For the mouth, I'm gonna use a black Sharpie. And then for the nose, I'm going to use that orange that I just showed you a while ago. And then I'm also going to use this acrylic paint in the color Lemon. And then for the very tip of the candy corn, I'm going to use the white color. Now after the nose is dry, I'm going to have to reapply those colors again. And now I have 1 reversible complete. And now for the male scarecrow, I'm going to do everything the same except for the lashes. And here's Mr. Scarecrow. And now we're going to work on their hats. Now these are Dollar Tree ornaments, as you can see, little hats. Right now they have some at Dollar General because I did see them. But what I'm going to have to do with these is make them neutral so that it'll go with both the snowman and the scarecrow. So I'm going to remove everything off of them and then start from scratch. And I'm going to be covering them back up with this burlap ribbon. It wasn't hard at all to remove everything. Now, one thing is when I did remove the felt from this hat, it did leave a black film on it. And so I didn't like that. I ended up painting it a cream color since I was going to cover it with the burlap ribbon. And so this is what I'm talking about. It left this film. So I ended up painting both pieces with just a tan acrylic paint. And so this is how it looks once it's painted. But I want you to look at one thing. It goes in an angle. So when I wrap the ribbon around, it is going to have some gaps that I'm going to have to pinch and then close up. You see what I mean? So I'm going to have to work with this to make it look right and fit. So I'm going to start hot gluing the ribbon just right there at the top where I was pointing at only, and then that way I can start fitting it to fit properly. And you see what I mean, how I have all this room. Now I don't want my hat to have all these pinches around. So I'm gonna have to make it work where it looks pretty smooth all around. And now I'm gonna hot glue the ends. So here I just want to show you there's 2 areas that I pinched off of excess ribbon, and what I'm going to do is take my scissors and cut that off. And then I'm still left with just a little bit of an area that has excess ribbon, and I'm just gonna take my scissors again and then just cut it down the center. And then I'm just gonna overlap the ribbon and then hot glue it together, and that'll seal it off. And this is how it turned out so far. And then using the same burlap ribbon, I'm gonna go ahead and cover the base of the hat. And I'm just gonna add some hot glue and then place the ribbon over it, and then I'm gonna turn it around on the back side and I'm gonna trim off the excess ribbon. The ribbon wasn't large enough to cover the whole circle, so I'm gonna have to use another piece to cover it up. And then for the top of the hat, I'm gonna also use another piece of ribbon. Now for this piece, I wanna make sure that it seals the ends really well. And I'm talking about where the side of the hat and the top of the hat meet. I want them to be sealed so you really can't see the foam underneath. And then I'm going to flip it over upside down and then cut the excess ribbon off. And then I stayed with another little gap that I have to cover up. Okay, so now that I have both of my pieces covered with ribbon, now I'm ready to hot glue them together and it forms the hat. Here I just want to show you that both hats are already ready and they're ready for me to start to decorate them. I'm going to start by using some of this Dollar Tree ribbon, and this is in the checker black and white print. Since this ribbon is too wide, I'm going to go ahead and cut it in half, and then I'm going to fold that half and then wrap it around one of the hats, and then I'll do the same thing to the other one. So I'm going to start hot gluing the ribbon around the base of the hat. And this is how it's looking so far. For the scarecrow side, I'm going to use these fall hydrangeas from Dollar Tree. So I'm going to remove one of the little flowers, and then I'm going to cut off the little plastic it has on the back and then hot glue it to the front of my hat. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other one as well. Just keep in mind that one hat is going to be for the male scarecrow and the other hat will be for the female scarecrow. And now for the snowman's hat, I'm going to turn my hat back to the back side and attach this little piece of pine stem. Now this came from the original hat when I took it apart. I am going to shorten it some because it's too long. I don't want it to show on the other side. And I'm also going to trim the little pine needles because they were too long. Okay, so here I'm just pointing out that I'm going to go directly to the back and then hot glue the pine stem. And then I'm gonna add a little pine cone and also a little red bell. And I'm also gonna decorate the other hat as well, and I'm gonna use some berries and just some little Christmassy items like that. So here, just want to show you that I made holes underneath the hats, and since it's foam, it goes right through. Being that the blocks already had this stem, it's really easy just to push down my hat. And so now my scarecrow is complete with hat and all. And now I'm going to do the same thing to the other scarecrow. And now you have this adorable set of scarecrows. And now when you turn it around to the back side, you have these cute snowmen. And so you can transition from fall to winter or Christmas decor. I am in love with these. Let me know down below in the comment section what you think about them. Which was your favorite? And I left the best for last. I absolutely love this Mr. and Mrs. Snowman that I created a while back. Okay, so I'll be starting off by showing you the items that I used for this DIY. I'll be using this Rust-Oleum 2X Ultra Cover Matte Clear Finish. I'll also be using 2 Christmas ornaments, and it'll be this little black hat and also the red plaid one. I'll also be using 2 of the small fishbowl vases and then 2 of the larger ones. These are found where all the vases are. And 2 of these LED push lights, some diamond wrap, and some of this leftover material that I had, a box cutter, 6 of these square mirrors, my glue gun, some scissors, some foam board, some clear acrylic gems, a pencil, a black and red permanent marker, some silver snowflake stickers, and some fix-all adhesive. Okay, so the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna spray paint the bowls. Now I'm gonna use this matte clear finish only because I couldn't find the frost finish at my local store. So I decided just to use this, and in hopes that it would give me that frost finish that I was looking for. And I tested it out on this vase and it did. So I'm going to take my bowls outside and spray them, and then once they're dry, I'll bring them back inside and I'll continue with the project. Okay, so while my bowls are drying, I'm going to create this base for my snowman, and they're going to be made out of these glass mirrors. But I am going to be using this foam board just to give them a little bit more of stability underneath, and I also want them to be just a little bit thicker in case I want to use this later on for something else. And then I'm just going to align them as I'm showing you right there, and then once I put them all together, I'm going to outline them with my pencil so that I can cut the foam board underneath, and I'll be cutting 2 pieces. Okay, so now that I have my 2 foam boards cut out, I'm going to go ahead and hot glue them. And in case you're wondering, the measurement is 15 by 10 inches. Next, I'm going to hot glue the mirrors on my foam board. And I'm just going to continue adding the mirrors to the foam board until I'm completely done. Next, I'm going to add some of that diamond wrap around the edges of my foam board just to dress it up some, and I'll just continue adding the diamond wrap all the way around. When you use hot glue with diamond wrap, it seeps through, so what I do is I barely tap it. If not, I will get a major burn on my fingers as I have before. And yes, I know there is those rubber protectors for my fingers, I just don't like using them. Okay, so this is what the edge looks like with the diamond wrap. This mirror tray turned out really nice. Like I said, I want to use it for other things, and I think that just having the mirror on there just makes it really pretty and kind of glamorous. Okay, so the finish on my bowls are dry already, and they do have that frosty look to them. Now I'm going to start drawing the face on the smaller bowl because the larger one is going to be the body of the snowman and the smaller one is going to be the head. So with my black marker, I made the eyes, and then I also made the smile, and with the red marker, I added the nose. And for Miss Snowman, I added some lashes to her and also some blush. You can also use some paint, but I thought it would just be easier to use the markers. Okay, so now that I've drawn on the face, I'm going to put some Fix All on the bottom rim, and I'm also going to add some hot glue and then just put the smaller bowl on top of the larger bowl. Okay, so now I'm going to put the little hat on the snowman, but first I'm going to remove the little holder that it has on top of the ornament, and all I'm gonna do is just pull it out. Because you can see a white spot where the holder was, I'm gonna go ahead and take my black marker and just color it in there just to hide it. Okay, so now I'm ready to hot glue the hat on top of the snowman's head. I'll be following the same steps to Mrs. Snowman. And this is what he looks like with his hat on. Okay, so next I'm gonna add this piece of cloth that I cut out and put it around the neck of Mr. Snowman. And here is Mr. Snowman. He looks absolutely adorable. And for Miss Snowman, I'm gonna go ahead and use this diamond wrap, and I'm gonna do the same thing, just wrap it around her neck, but I am gonna hot glue the two ends of the diamond wrap. And this is how Ms. Snowman looks. Next, I added the snowflakes to the bottom base of the snowman just so they could look like they were buttons. And I did that to Miss Snowman and also Mr. Snowman. The stickers do have that sticky pad on them, but if you want them to have a more permanent hold, you can use some super glue or also some hot glue. I present you Mr. and Mrs. Snowman. I apologize, I did not show you when I slipped the LED light underneath each body of the snowman, but basically all I did was just add the batteries to the LED lights and then turn them on and then slip them underneath the body of each of the snowmen, and that's why they have that glow and they're lighted up because of the LED lights. Well, that's it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed all these Christmas in July DIYs. Please be sure and share and also give me a big thumbs up. That really helps my channel. Until my next video, bye-bye and God bless.